Hey everyone, I know you've missed us. Welcome to This Week in Caribbean Tech. It's your weekly show on the future of technology in Caribbean business, where we give you news, unfiltered insights into the people and businesses that are driving the Caribbean's digital economy. And of course, we give you a heads up on some events to add to your calendar. My name is Ingrid Riley, and with me, my co-host. What your name, sir?
I'm Daniel Smith, CEO of Keeping Me.
Yeah. And so we're back. We're away for a couple of weeks, and forgive us. We are, two CEOs of two companies that are in a growth mode or doing different things, and so sometimes our schedule will go a little bit wacky. But it will settle down without question. And we have to settle down, Daniel, because we have some really illustrious guests coming on over the next few weeks. So we've got to behave ourselves for sure.
Yeah, in addition to the fact that it was just the end of summer and life just got
Summary.
crazy. Yeah.
Life got summary.
Basically.
Put it that way.
Basically.
Life got summary. So we hope that you guys are having a good summer. And since we're actually outside, we won't mention monkeypox. We're just going to pretend to hear the news about it. But this week's show is packed. We have a bunch of different things to talk to you about, of course. In this week's episode, let me just give you a little bit of heads up. We're going to talk about the American recession and how it's affecting venture funding for entrepreneurs. Secondly, there's a digital wallet battle going on in Jamaica. Thirdly, remember in previous episodes, I kept mentioning about the rideshare market is heating up in Jamaica. So let's find out what's making Uber executives fly into Jamaica over the next couple of days. In addition to that, digital currency is at the tip of everybody's tongue because it gets a green light in that oil factory, your homeland there, Trinidad, right? So we have digital currency gets a green light there, and a digital startup, a disruptive startup is chomping at the bits to get some things going. And then the last thing we want to talk about is the startup that we'll put in the spotlight called GiftMe. And the question is, are they about to disrupt remittances, not just in Jamaica, but probably around the Caribbean for sure, and the diaspora. So we have a bunch of different things chock full. And of course, we're going to tell you there are a couple of events coming up that we believe would be of value to you. So let's begin. The R word, recession, inflation. Of course, as we always say in the Caribbean, American sneezes and the Caribbean gets a cold. So pretty much the numbers came out a couple of days ago. People thought that, already in America, the inflation numbers were 9.1%, the highest it has been in 40 years. But the report came in that is now tracking downwards, at least that's what they hope. So it's now was reported as being 8.5%. So it seems to be going in the direction that people want to go. So the American markets rallied, the crypto markets rallied. But what we really want to talk about is the winter of startup funding still on us, or is there room? What is really happening in terms of the recession, the VC, funders, and of course the startups that are going on there. I know you particularly have your own take on it, because you're in the process of raising funding for Keeping It. You already raised some funds because y'all saw me teasing him about that a couple months ago. And so you're in the process of trying to raise new funds. What is the temperature that you're finding out there in terms of the recession, investors, and startups?
Well, just like how we found ourselves in the middle of vacation factory because it was summer, I think that a lot of VCs were off to the summer jaunts of Europe and, taking some time out.
Yes.
So I think that was number one. But, ultimately what I heard personally and what, you're seeing in the market is that, especially at the lower ends, there is difficulty in, people just funding based on certain numbers. The terms are changing. That's what I can tell you. There is no more uncapped safes. There's a lot of talk about, hey, if you want to have a safe, you have to cap it at a certain amount depending on your fundraise. So the temperature from a few months ago has drastically shifted more in favor of the VCs based on this current market period that we are in. And so there is a certain level of, direction shift for entrepreneurs who are raising. So everybody has to be very cognizant of that, just going into this cycle and in this period. Hopefully, I think that, coming into or going into the fall months, we'll start to understand what that shakeout really feels like. But it's, I would say chaotic based on the fact that, number one, you're between the recession, all the conversations of a recession, and also because of the just, everybody just kind of being in a state of flux, trying to understand what is going on. Yeah. The temperature has shifted, and entrepreneurs, you have to be, if you're pre-seed or pre-revenue, pre-product, well, that
the corner dark, as we would say in Jamaica, right?
Yeah, pre-product, you're all in a different creek. So I think that it's going to be very interesting. I mean, even when you start looking at some of the accelerator programs, the conversation around those, is like Techstars has cut, not Techstars, sorry, Y Combinator has cut numbers. Techstars will tell you how much, hundreds and hundreds of applications they're getting to some programs. So you see there's a lot of entrepreneurs and startups chasing some of these programs. So it's become very competitive in certain realms. And so now, those programs also have their pick of the litter in terms of who they get to fund or who they get to take on or what they get to take on, because there's so much entrepreneurs out there looking for funding. So it's a very different game from just 3 to 4 months ago, in addition to the fact that we have had the conversation, and part of it is also the amount of tech companies that have, I think the last number I saw on Thursday or maybe Friday was like 68,000 people who were let go or had been laid off in the tech sector. So you have a number of variables when you look at it on the surface, to make you take pause of what is happening in the market.
And this is kind of different too from last year. Last year was like a banner year in terms of VC funding into tech startups. There was the most money ever, right, flowing into to startups and early stage businesses. And so now, because of the R word, recession, because of inflation, because of the rising cost of everything, everybody, and people are just trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen with those inflation numbers in America? And so what everybody did, there's a lot of fear. So everybody, when that fear of like, gosh, I'm not going to probably either be able to raise another round, or we don't know if the money is going to be drying up, then founders, as you said, started to cut back, started to cut staff, cut costs, cut cost projections, and the venture capitalists are basically saying, listen, we're pausing, we put in a lot of money, so now that money needs to sort of start working. And so cut your costs, do whatever you need to do to be lean, get into that zone of making money, And so, as they say right now, a recession is a Black Friday sale for investors. I found that online, which is true. Because again, a lot of these, look at SoftBank. SoftBank is one of the largest funds in the world. They lost $21 billion. And the guy, who heads it, he says he's had to say sorry. He said, I'm sorry, it was exuberance and hubris, pretty much. That basically, they were spraying and praying. And, when things were going great, they just kept throwing cash on the fire, throwing cash in the oven. And so they racked up a $21 billion loss. And when other VC funds see that, they're like, okay, hold on, break up. Let's kind of rationalize. Let's, if we're doing any sort of a deals or any additional rounds, the valuations are going to have to come down. And of course, we saw earlier this year where a bunch of the tech startups were starting to see a crunch or a slide in their earnings. And so that was like the thing that belled the cat, and everybody was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, so right now it seems as if like startups are, holy crap, I'm gonna have to actually make this money work and make the startup work. Holy crap, I'm gonna have to go to the negotiating table a little bit.
And do it down wrong.
Yeah, we're doing a down round and a little bit more humbly, and so they're doing whatever it takes. I think I sent to you that resource that actually counts down the number of
tech workers that had been laid off.
Yeah, layoff. I think it's, what did I send to you? I can't remember. See if I can find it. I remember what was the name of it. It was Cody Sanchez that was doing this presentation about this whole recession and opportunities and challenges. And she popped out this layoffs.fyi.
Right, yes.
Guys, go check it out. It's interesting to see they're tracking live the tech startups and the layoffs that's been happening around the world. It's just fascinating. So pretty much right now, it's investors are holding the handle, and entrepreneurs are forced to perform, to negotiate differently. And so how is that going to affect? But here's the thing that I'm realizing though, not every industry is affected. Because while they were pretty much spraying and praying in areas like cryogenics and space and they're pretty much like also gone into like wellness areas in terms of like for longevity, by things that's around biohacking, food. A lot of people buying hundreds and thousands of acres of land. So not all industries are being hit. But here's the other thing people need to realize, that as big and as loud that venture capitalists are, and big and loud and impactful that the VC industry can have and always has, is that they really only represent 10% of investment money around the world. The rest of the stuff comes from angels or just simply entrepreneurs bootstrapping from their customers. So they take up a lot of oxygen. VCs take up a lot of oxygen and a lot of column inches, a lot of pixels in terms of a media play, because what they do invest in becomes market leaders or market shifters some way, but they're still not the only game in town. So while people kind of look at them as a sort of a indicator of what may or may not happen, we can't just look at 10% of the market. Yes, some of that does actually make some sway, but there's like a whole other 90% of the market that's we should be paying attention to as well. So that's kind of my take on it right now.
Yeah, I think that is about right in terms of how you have to look at it. I don't even know that there is, the reality is, and it also depends on the type of startup you're building. So, but stuff in tech, I would say that needs to scale really has to find that way, or you just go really slow. and what you need, the funding for most times is to be able to scale, to be able to hire staff, to be able to, get in front of the right, customers, etc. Marketing, a lot of it, there's this stat that says, 40% of VC funds was used to do a lot of marketing, goes back into Facebook and other social media platforms, etc. So you do realize that some of it is maybe wasted, I guess, on a lot of marketing spend. But at the same time, you do realize that depending on what you're building, and you're right, customers is the best cure for trying to raise funds. The more customers, even I saw an email from somebody I'm talking to, it's like, hey, revenue. So it's one of those. And we're at the point of, for us, onboarding customers and getting that, but, there's still a lot of, leeway that we need to, kind of be between 0 and, because we've been on in the market for like 5 weeks, mostly testing. We have customers who are testing the product, etc. So, every stage is different, and your requirements at different stages. But it's, for me, what I try to look at, especially from the Caribbean point of view, is how would our startup say, already there's a requirement or very little options in terms of funding. So then how do our startups now start faring in this whole ecosystem of a very drier than usual market? Do people go on the offensive? Do people, how many startups survive? Because the other thing about it is that some of these startups won't survive. And that's where
without question.
We have to be realistic about it.
Absolutely.
So, it's kind of survival of the fittest at this stage, to make sure that, you are one of those that survive, or you figure out how to consolidate, you get acquired, you do some acqui-hires, but it's going to be very interesting to see how the market evolves.
Absolutely. And as those billionaire boys on the All In podcast with Jason Calacanis and Chamath Palihapitiya and those other guys, are saying like, they don't know all the numbers. They can't sit there and try and guess what are going to be the other numbers that pour out of, American, in terms of American data. So people are just simply sitting and waiting, and then, seeing how, how they'll need to respond when other numbers come out, for sure. So yeah, so as I say, a recession is like a Black Friday sale for investors, and it's definitely a wake-up call for entrepreneurs to find that sweet spot, make customers pay for what it is that they want, and you have to assess whether or not you're actually solving a real problem, for sure. So yeah, so all right, so switching gears. So we've mentioned before about Uber being in the Caribbean, and they closed after a year in Trinidad. They opened up just around a year ago in Jamaica. They released a lot of interesting numbers around a month ago. Pretty much over 100 and something million made in the market from the driver's side, up 15,000 users of the Uber app. But they're not the only game in town. I also mentioned that InDriver is here, and they're right now basically making a hell of an interesting mark. So we have Uber, InDriver, a locally grown taxi company that launched their own app called Traveler Taxi. Then there's another one coming into the market called Chauffeur, and you probably had mentioned, I heard me mention QuickCart, which is a online, ordering and food delivery company, but they're also going into the ride sharing business. So we're talking about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in the Jamaican market. But here's what's been happening recently, and I wrote about it on Silicon Carib. If you want to check it out, the article is called Uber versus InDriver versus Others, who I think will win the Jamaican market. And pretty much what's been happening, as somebody who uses Uber and has been using Uber in Jamaica for the past year, I had to switch to InDriver. You know why? Somebody, I believe, you can't tell me, somebody is messing with how the Uber app works in Jamaica. It's been a constant bunch of errors for the past month. You can't book a ride. And if for every time you try, for every 10 times you try, you may get through once. What has also happened is that there's been a migration, a shift from Uber drivers over to InDriver. Why? Because right now, Uber InDriver doesn't take a percentage of the fare that drivers charge. So they're right now, and I think they said they have at least 1 year before they actually start doing that. And also InDriver, because of course I'm interviewing a bunch of these drivers, they switch from Uber to InDriver because they can get cash, because with InDriver, you have to have cash. If you have what is called Link, which is a digital wallet, we'll come to that later, then you can probably just simply, pretty much like a Venmo, you Venmo it to the thing there, to the driver. So right now there's a shift that's happening from Uber to InDriver, because InDriver also allows the customer to negotiate the fare with the driver. And so what they're finding is that they're getting a little bit of higher rate with InDriver without any money being taken out of it right now, versus Uber, which is still below market rate in terms of its fares, and they're now moved from taking out 25% of the fare to now 10%. So with the shift in drivers from one app to their competitor, plus they seem to be having some issues. I believe that there's something is happening on a technical side. I'll not say anything else, where somebody is messing with the Uber app. Pretty much what happened is, like, it reminded me of a couple of years ago when Viber, more than a couple of years ago, Viber and some other voice over IP apps were around. And of course, anything to avoid paying international calling fee, right? Jamaicans downloaded it with a vengeance. Did you sell online to telecom companies like, no, not on my watch, and pretty much stopped the apps from working. You see where I'm going with this? Anyway, so
it sounds so much like tech sabotage, but
yeah, but you know what? Allegedly, so we can cover us where that is concerned. So right now, the rideshare market is very hot. We have these five people, and it kind of shows that, one, that the transportation issues in Jamaica, all the problems are not solved. For me, it also shows, two, that there's clearly different tiers of possibilities, because like I took an InDriver today just to pop out, and so the guy came in a nice vehicle, air conditioned, clean, the whole 9 yards. Pretty much what I had become, accustomed to with Uber. And he asked me, how do I find InDriver? I said, well, frankly, they seem to let anybody on this app, because the quality of the drivers and the quality of the service is ridiculously lower than what I found on Uber. Only unless I happen upon the Uber drivers that are that I'm used to taking, that happen upon them on InDriver. But the quality of the vehicles, the quality of the people who drive those vehicles is nowhere near what I experienced for a year with Uber. So InDriver is going to have to do some quality check, and Uber is going to have to deal with some tech check. So that's where things are right now.
But it does lead me to, because I remember taking an Uber this weekend.
That's in Miami though, dude.
Yeah.
You're in Miami.
Yeah. But the fact is, it's still Uber. The quality of the drivers, sometimes it can vary. So I mean, and I have zero qualms in giving you a 0 rating or a 3 rating if I have an issue with you. So that's just me. But what I would say, and I think that coming out, I mean, we missed it in terms of the last few weeks, but the whole question of regulation of tech is something that, I think that we have to put back front and center. I remember Dennis O'Brien over Digicel was talking about regulation at the Canto event recently. And so it really does give me pause. And I think that, Ingrid, we need some Canto people coming on the show at some point.
Yep.
But, just that whole question of what does regulation look like? Because I think that, that quality of service issue, but also just regulating the tech. And again, I had a conversation with somebody out to the Caribbean yesterday, and it was, just talking about how Caribbean governments have not been as proactive as regulating around tech.
Yeah.
And regulating for the citizens. When you realize that some of the companies in the Caribbean region, especially around tech, are generating a whole heap of revenue around the Caribbean, yet the service quality in the Caribbean is quite questionable for some services.
I agree.
And then we start asking the question, where are Caribbean governments to protect the citizenry who help these companies turn into $1 million and billion-dollar companies?
Billion-dollar companies, without question.
Why isn't there a proper regulatory framework to protect? Because I mean, while we may laugh at the issues that Uber is facing, some of it may be crap going on behind the scenes. Absolutely. And the fact is that if there was government regulation around transportation in general and what these apps do and don't do, because, I think that, even in the last month, there was like all the Uber files that were coming out, and, people were surprised at Gayscale and what was going on and how they were ducking regulators, etc. You realize that I think that a lot of that has been cleaned up. Dara Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber right now, is on a mission to clean up a lot of the wrongs of Uber. But the fact is, the question for me is, especially looking at our region, is the question of how do the regulators come into play to make sure that at the end of the day, the citizens aren't the ones who suffer in some of these cases. And what your experience, Uber versus InDriver, sounds a bit like, hey, hold on, where's the regulation that should be here?
Yeah.
And
there is regulation around. There is a regulatory body. It's called the OUR, Office of Utility Regulation, which people have been like, listen, you guys pretty much are like toothless tigers, especially when it comes to these telecoms, because of course the government gets revenue from these telecoms, and they feed this revenue back into basically what is called digital skill, digital inclusion kind of a projects, right? So maybe they don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater, I don't know. But the thing is that this ride sharing market is definitely new, and so it's do the government officials who the regulatory bodies, are they aware of what is going on? I don't think so. Are there, because I don't think they're on the ground at all. So it was interesting because, of course, it was a InDriver driver who made the shift, but not really shift, because most of them are using 3 apps. They're using Uber, using InDriver, and they're using the local one, Traveler. So whichever one gives them the best deal, they're like working all 3 platforms, right? But what this guy told me is that, yeah, Uber executives are flying in, that sent all the Uber drivers an email saying, hey, we're coming to meet you guys because we want to know what's happening. They see the shift away from the service. They see the drop in the service, according to the reports of us reporting that the app is not working. They said that they're aware. They're asking people to like reinstall the app. I did that 5 times. It's still happening. That is how I know that is beyond the norm, right? So it could easily be I will not gonna say it, but you know what I'm saying.
Ingrid,
So
my question though, did Uber set up themselves by putting out their numbers publicly to attract a bunch of attention now, and now that the attention
but it's interesting too that InDriver, based on the app, every time you open InDriver, it will tell you over 100 million users. So why is it? So they're not like, and they're in over 60 countries. So it's not like a small fry either, right? And then Traveler Taxi is a startup that had a small taxi company, then put an app to it and is servicing a heavily underserved area just outside of, in the other parish in St. Catherine, and do a little bit of Kingston. So why is it that those apps work so well and Uber's app is the only one that's giving issues over the past month? And this happens to coincide with the time where InDriver has done a massive marketing push in this region. I just find, in this country, I just find it too coincidental. And some of the Uber drivers and InDrivers said that, yeah, they think that something is going on, with the telcos, because they get a lot of complaints from people that they can't get to book their rides. So something is in something, as we would say here in Jamaica. So we'll see, because right. Next week when I'm traveling with either of them, I'm gonna ask, so what did the Uber executives say? Or what are they planning on doing to sort out themselves? So anyway,
it goes back to one of those things I had in my younger days, what I could say, how we gonna look, how we gonna feel. So yeah, we gonna see.
So we'll see. And as we talk about Uber and all of the competition that it has heated up in the ride-sharing market in Jamaica, that's not the only battle that's going on now, right? Jamaica seems to be like super hot this year for some reason. But digital wallets are also doing battle. And again, it's basically how would you put it now? The legacy players with their startup, their new startups that are actually seeking to capture the market. NCB, which is the largest bank in Jamaica, owned by billionaire Michael Lee Chin, has a startup called Link App, a digital wallet that allows you to do peer-to-peer, but also facilitates merchant transactions.
Ingrid, you're calling these new startups, are they just brand extensions? Let's be real.
But they call them startups. They're startups, but they're, of course, they're brand extensions, but they call them startups. But there are startups in terms of like them just launch. That particular arm, fintech arm, just launched. I call them startups, right?
No, I don't call them startups. Those are just brand extensions of a billion. They're not going out to try to raise funds. They're not having to,
But I can tell you that Link was very in stealth mode. I didn't want it to be fully associated with NCB. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So right. NCB has Link app. Then Digicel, of course, the Caribbean's largest telecoms provider. The telecoms provider that made that Irishman a billionaire. I'm just saying, has bought a local remittance agency called Paymaster. So Paymaster has what is called what they call now a remittance license that Digicel does not have, because Digicel is a telecoms business. So they bought Paymaster, and so they now have launched very quietly a digital wallet called MyCash. Now, here's the thing that happened. Here, the bacchanal that happened last weekend. Yeah, last weekend was Jamaica's Independence Weekend. So we had the grand gala at the National Stadium. 30,000 people in person. How many people watching it live? They had a drone show in the night, and at the end of the grand gala, it says Grand Gala Jamaica 60, because our 60th anniversary, sponsored by Link. Big in the sky. People were taking massive pictures of it. That same day or day after, MyCash pushed their heads out like, hey, MyCash is here, blah, blah, blah. When they saw that big advertising that captured everybody's attention, what that Link did, they're like, hold up, retract. We're gonna have to go wheel and come again, as we'd say, because digital is used to being the one that makes a statement to the market. That's how they actually basically, tore up the Jamaica and the Caribbean. So right now we have mindshare and market share competition with these two legacy players that have spun out fintech brands, spun out these digital wallets to then move with the times. And that's just those two right now. There are others coming. So again, this is really interesting that Jamaica is this lightning rod for these new developments in fintech and new developments in ride sharing. It's very interesting to watch. I mean, I know we're the largest English-speaking Caribbean island, and we have a very strong remittance and diaspora as well. So yeah, it makes it sound like, oh, there's a crap ton of money to be made here, for sure.
It goes back to regulation. Because there's also WEP, which has also been doing some, I would say, marketing online, because I think like 3 weeks ago I saw them testing how you can use your phone and do the links and stuff like that. And so you put your phone when you go to the grocer and stuff, and you can use WePay to pay. So they were attaching your card to your phone, and so they are evolving the space too. So
absolutely.
I think that, and I know that they have the color bank stuff that they're coming with.
Neobank, which they just registered in the States, yes.
Right, yeah, so it is going to be very interesting to watch how it all evolves. But it does.
Fintech is hot in the Caribbean, very, very hot in the Caribbean right now.
Yeah, because a lot of the things, number one, the legacy banks in the Caribbean haven't done as much as they're supposed to over the years. Yeah. Service has not. I mean, you look at somewhere like Trinidad sometimes, and with all the issues around forex, etc., and foreign exchange, people still cry out for murder of being able to get U.S. currency and stuff like that. So I think that there is
just in case y'all didn't know that you can't just walk up to an ATM or in Trinidad and just simply take out US dollars as we here can do in Jamaica. You literally almost have to like book to get reserve US dollars at your bank to get US dollars to do business. It's ridiculous for such an oil-rich, natural gas-rich company. US dollars is scarce, and their dollar is strong. It's a 6 TT dollars to $1 US. So maybe that's what they're saying. Maybe that's the reason why it is so strong, that they have this hold on not allowing the US dollar to be so freely used and traded in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's a sort of a history point to link to what he was just saying a while ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think that I saw people complaining. It's like, hey, I can't even get 100 US to travel, or I need to book, or the max is like 500 for some people, and some people like you have to tell them all your travel plans up front before you could even get like a few hundred US. And
Jamaica was like that back in the 70s when I didn't even know myself.
Right. And it has progressively gotten worse, because I remember when I was in Trinidad doing business, and I would have to deal with our vendors, I'd have to, but it was nothing like now. I mean, and I know that because I was one of my consultancy projects there, just getting US is always a hassle, and I'd have to find ways and means. And so, and they've even capped some of those means. Some of your banks will tell you, hey, you can't spend, and these things are written down so you can go find it. But they would tell you like you cap at like 3,000 US per month or whatever the case, and so it does show why fintechs are becoming really critical for the underbanked and the unbanked, because the numbers around our region say like what 40% plus, maybe higher, is underbanked and unbanked. Yeah. And so getting a lot of those people into the system to be able to use, in addition to the fact of all the other new initiatives that COVID would bring, because now you can't touch money, people have to do stuff digitally. I do think it opens the floodgates, but the question, also going into a recession of a winter, you have to factor all these things in, and
Yeah.
where it all lands. And I think that, if I were Lynx and, Paymaster, I'm sitting pretty at this point in time, because I know, number one, we could ride out any storm because we have the money. Number two, we have the most brand value in the market. So, it's going to be interesting to watch how the
They duke it out in the marketplace.
yeah,
For sure. Absolutely.
and in addition to the fact that the younger players and the newer players, those who don't have the capital, etc., right at hand, how are they going to fare?
Yeah. So for me, it's interesting where for having a digital wallet, companies like Link and MyCash. And of course, it was, again, I said, Digital strategically bought Paymaster because Paymaster has a remittance license. And that's where, whoever moves to get a slice of that remittance flow, is going to be serious winners, because the peer-to-peer stuff they don't really make money from, but that whole, use your whatever card to send money directly to your loved one's Link account or MyCash account from the States, and they're able to use it. It's going to be really interesting. But I mean, as we all know, that the reason why fintech is so hot across regions, yes, because there's a high underbanked and unbanked numbers across the region. Legacy banks have also, I think, consciously and strategically moved slowly, because there are the fat cats making a lot of money from loans and from fees, so they didn't have to innovate as fast as they should have. But most importantly is that the past 2 years, digitization and the digital culture rapidly ramped up because of COVID. So there are expectations from customers, and expectations from merchants in terms of things happening a lot slower the whole night, a lot faster for them. So it's going to be interesting. That's why I kept saying in the early stages of our podcast that you're going to hear us talking a lot about fintech and crypto and e-commerce, because it's going to become a banner year into 2023 across the region, which leads us to our fourth story, dude. And again, it's out of your country. Paymaster, not Paymaster, oops, Paywise and Wham. Well, let's start with Paywise. Paywise, which is a payments company, the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago has authorized the first company, Paywise, to issue e-money in Trinidad and Tobago. So what this means is that Paywise accepts payments from customers and transfers the money into a bank account, right? And so they're basically saying, Paywise, you're the company that will be allowed to be the first to do e-money, which is, of course, e-money as we describe it is digital money, digital currency, whatever you want to call it. And of course, it uses the mobile phone as well. So according to the central bank, Paywise has been given this license. And so they will act as a digital payment platform so that people can actually do their usual payment transactions. But not just Paywise. There's a startup from Z Labs, which is led by Mark Perrier, and he has a mobile payment app called Wham. So when he saw that Paywise was given this license to operate eCurrency in Trinidad and Tobago, he sent out to his WhatsApp groups and everything, okay, this is fantastic. So what we're going to be doing now, since we have done, a soft launch a couple of weeks ago, we're going to go full ahead in terms of a marketing push for Wham to drive awareness and excitement around the app as they too get closer to a public launch to allow people to pay, get paid, shop, and be all social in their digital money app called Wham. So it's going to be interesting to see, again, a legacy company that's been around for a number of years, like Paywise, being given the green light in the Trinidadian marketplace. And then, of course, a startup which is seeking to disrupt and have been quietly building an ecosystem around their digital payment platform. So what says you? Your Trinidad heating up, man. They're right behind or right beside Jamaica with all the fintech excitement.
Yeah, but I don't know that PY's is a legacy company. I think PY's
They've been around for a couple of years, but they're not like long,
no, I mean,
like
yeah.
50 years like NC
Yeah.
or
No.
yeah, but yeah.
No, but they're around a few years. So I mean, and I think that this for them maybe their uh most major push into and the fact that they've been around a while have given them the credibility to get the central bank to issue this license to them. So it's going to be interesting to one may have very interesting hopes of it, but it took PYs a while. I think I remember meeting those guys.
Yeah, it says here that they were
While back.
incorporated in Trinidad in 2013. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's on a 10 years old.
Yeah. So I know I've met them and I've had conversations with them in one of my previous roles, unofficially. But the fact is that those guys have, kind of did the work and they have been on the ground. So they've built the trust factor for their product and for their brand. It's going to be interesting to see how WAM, getting into the scene, but it does again give people more options. I think, with this announcement, because I think that there was a lot of, especially in my Facebook feed, I saw a lot of Trinis who were like, hey, and a lot of people were referencing Weepy in this whole, why wasn't Weepy given this license, and Weepy had to.
You can see why they moved to Jamaica now, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was a lot of comments about, hey, we have young innovators here, yet, people had to go to Jamaica because you all didn't want to give them and I know that there would be whatever reasoning from, the central bank and those who at that stage, but that was a lot of the commentary coming through online, and there were a lot of people with who was like, hey, innovation is not going to take off here if we have people who are wanting to do these things, and they basically, because I know Alwyn Wayne appeared before into a joint select committee of the Trinidad and Tobago Parliament, and he was asked to give his experience, and he basically told how he had to all his struggles that he had to go through, and so maybe that was the spur in terms of getting PYs to be able to say the powers that be to say, hey, PYs, we're gonna give you this kind of thing, that could be, but the fact is that where innovation is concerned, I would say we as a region have a lot of innovation. The question is always how the regulators, because without the funding ecosystem, without the market statistics and the numbers, we as a region still continue to produce startups, can produce stuff to try to really innovate in the market. So I think it augurs well for the possibilities and the future for what customers can see in the market.
Yep.
But I also would say, from a legislative framework, I think that we have to get quicker in terms of, okay, how fast can we make sure that these things actually meet our standards, meet our requirements, because it can't take 9 years for startups to be able to get stuff done, because nobody's going to stay in market that long without customers or without, we don't know what it takes to go that distance to now be getting something 9 years later. So.
Well, yeah, because, as we all know that, what I'm reading here is that Paywise is run by, the founder is Ian Alain. That name sounds very, very familiar. And so they're in Guyana, Barbados, and Grenada, and of course, Trinidad. And they say here that 65% of their merchants are small businesses. Mm-hmm. So and they got a grant funding from the EU to boost mm-hmm. regional expansion. So that's very interesting. And that happened in 2019, right? So I guess they're making good of that money and that expansion. So it's again very interesting to see Paywise getting the first license from the Central Bank of Trinidad. And of course, we have Z Labs pumping out their own mobile payment app called WAM. All this is coming out of Trinidad. So we're going to be watching and seeing, if more licenses are given out of Trinidad. Because again, innovation always outpaces legislation and regulation. And so as we know, a lot of the technocrats and the government officials are still learning, trying to catch up on what is fintech and how it's going to affect consumers and merchants and the economy generally. And so we'll wait to see how that particular thing unfolds. So yeah. And so the last item that we want to talk about, again, it's fintech, people. I'm telling you, it's a fintech heavy week. We told you're going to hear a lot about that this year across the region. And that's why I've been getting emails coming in say, hey, so X company is coming into the Latin American Caribbean market. I need to know what is going on here. Well, hey, this week in Caribbean Tech is one of the places you can learn. This podcast will let you know what is going on. And of course, SiliconCarib.com. So this final thing is this another startup in the spotlight out of Jamaica. It's called GiftMe. Pretty much it's really a fintech company that has a gift card business attached to it, right? So of course, if you go to shopgiftme.com, you'll see your array of merchants that you can buy gift cards from. And it's also not just gift card, but also a rewards program. In fact, I just downloaded it yesterday. It's run by Rochelle Billings, who's part of the Kingston Beta tech community here. This is like, he's been in this game for like pretty much 10 years. I remember the first time I met him, I think it was in 2012, when he pitched at our event, Caribbean Beta, with a mobile platform called WAP. Yeah, that was the first WAP I heard about. But it wasn't what Cardi B was singing about. It was about a mobile platform that enabled them to do certain things, allow people to basically build their own apps. So here he is in 2022 doing a gift card company. He got $300,000 from a local angel investor. And so he right now, it's still just starting, have a little bit over 1,000 downloads. But the crux of this, when you look at it, you can, of course, anybody living anywhere in the world can buy a gift card and pass it on to their loved one, their child, their auntie, whatever it is. So the reason why I brought it up is that this could easily be a disruptor in terms of remittances, not so?
I think so. I think that it does provide a lot of options for.
You look so tired, my youth.
I'm not. I'm thinking. I'm thinking. About the possibilities.
No. Because
especially from the foreign aspect. The thing about it is that it provides you with an easy way. What I was actually thinking about was like the gift cards that you get. And when people give you gift cards. So I've in the last month I think I've gotten a gift card, and I remember using it in some places. So I'm thinking just about how things like that can make it easier for remittances. So your family wants something, and so now you send them this gift card rather than actually only be able to send them through
money. Exactly.
Money. So it eats into those remittance companies
like Grace Kennedy in Jamaica, which is the biggest. I think they do Western Union.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then there is also MoneyGram that is here as well. Without question, because now you have gift cards that you can go to the pharmacy with, you can go to the supermarket with, and so instead of them, so you just say, hey, you send somebody the remittances through a gift card, then they can directly go to that particular supermarket and everything and use it. Mm-hmm. They don't have to go line up in a remittance office. They don't have to travel to a remittance office and all that. So for me, it's like it can be a massive disruptor of the remittance, the flow of remittances between the diaspora and Jamaica. I just think it's definitely a startup to watch for sure.
Yeah, and one of the reasons also is that it reminded me of some of the stuff that I've seen around remittances in the past year, because I think on the telecom side, there have been products that they have been working on, and I presume Digicel would have, you can send your family money, because I know that that is one of the ways you can send your family money, but it's more like sending them a top up. And now with this GiftMe, it's not only like a top up, it's something that you can use outside of that. So it does provide them with options. So I'm just looking at, how the telecom space can get into this, or, GiftMe may be a perfect acquisition target for somebody who realizes, this is my future, or this can be the way that I am able to get into the market and be able to sustain the market.
Or to own the markets. Like they're a perfect acquisition target for like Grace Kennedy or Jamaica National or VM that want to still maintain a hold on the remittance market, because of course that is ridiculously lucrative.
Yep.
And yeah, so those three companies are primarily the largest ones that allow for that to happen. So my eye is on definitely on GiftMe for sure. So good luck to Russia and his team for how fast they get into that. And I said I have other things coming. I think that at the last Kingston beta 2 weeks ago, they launched like a game. So they've created a platform that they can do very interesting things. Can do the gift card, which allow for remittances, can do rewards, can do games. And this is a developer-led business startup. So it's going to be interesting to see what they pump out over the next few months for sure. So yeah, man.
And Ingrid, I think that I saw you somewhere on some video for Kingston Beta launching. I see you were big in the highlights. So what more does Kingston Beta have coming up? Because there was the big splash announcement that you made about, hey,
I franchised it. Yes.
Exactly. So what's next for Kingston Beta?
Well, Kingston Beta, I franchised it to Jermaine Henry, who is the CEO of Norris Tech. So we have a legal agreement and a financial agreement. Silicon Carib, my business, still owns it, but they now are tasked to continue what we started and did for 15 years, which is to continue with startups, continue with boot camps, have events like hackathons that still connect, educate, and inspire and inform the tech community. So what is coming up next is something a little bit different. We've never done this before. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I think that's those two business-like and focus on business. So Jermaine decided that we're gonna take Kingston Beta by the beach. So we're having this in-between events that's like a meetup by the beach. So I call it Beta by the Beach. They just listen. Kingston Beta by the Beach is a pop-up Lime. And we're doing it next week, Sunday, August 21, from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. We're having a bonfire that starts at 7 p.m. and it's out just basically like a half an hour drive from Kingston into the other parish we call St. Thomas by this Wiki Wacky Beach Bar. So no entry fee, just come and vibe and buy drinks and that kind of a thing. So we've never actually done Beta Lime by the beach before, so this is our first, and so I like the fact that he and his team thought about this and are doing that. And then the next official meetup is in September.
So Ingrid, this is you by the beach.
This is what?
This is you by the beach.
Absolutely, I'm definitely going to be.
Okay, ma'am.
So we're going by the beach. We're gonna do by the beach. So that's there. And then Silicon Carib has the next event that we're doing is a Future of Caribbean e-commerce. It's a virtual trend forum. As we know, we've been doing a bunch of trend forums for the past year. So it's going to be October the 12th, 2022. If you're interested in sponsoring that event, please get in touch with us at events@siliconcarib.com or just me directly, Ingrid at siliconcarib.com. We're going to have amazing speakers talking about the current e-commerce trends, what you know, the whole context right now of recession, inflation, digitization. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? How are all these things that are happening right now? How does it change the way we buy, the way we sell, and how do you position yourself to thrive in any market? So it's really for e-commerce service providers, merchants, entrepreneurs, startups. So if you're interested in sponsoring, events at siliconcarib.com, Ingrid at siliconcarib.com. If you're interested in speaking, please hit us up again. So that's pretty much it. Oh, one last thing before we round up. I started a new podcast. This is basically a solo narrative show called This Week in Caribbean Startups. And so what I do for maybe 7 or 8 minutes, I profile three Caribbean startups. One that's like a OG pioneer, one who I just believe that you simply must know about, and another that will make you sort of like go, they make money from doing what? So I do that. We drop it every Thursday, and it's currently now on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, with iTunes and YouTube coming up soon. So This Week in Caribbean Startups. So This Week in Caribbean Tech has a sister. So yeah. So that's it. So anything to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, it's good to be back.
For the rest of our weekend.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
I think that summer has, brought us a lot of news, a lot of trends. I think there are a lot of people who want to be on the show. So I think that we have a lot of interesting things coming up as we head into, on this side, the fall months, and, what the future of the third and the fourth, going into the fourth quarter looked like. But it's going to be really interesting, I think, ride in terms of what happens next for us all, especially what happens in Caribbean tech.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time as we wind down a little bit. We have only 2 more months of official summer holiday. And so we have a couple of interviews coming up around some events that are popping up that are going to be happening across the region. And so we're going to have a bunch of interviews, some fresh guests, and maybe even some co-hosts over the next few weeks for sure. So look out for that. And of course, if you have news for us, if you want to be interviewed, we love talking to entrepreneurs, investors, players in the Caribbean and Caribbean industry, in the diaspora industry. If you want to be on our show, shoot us an email, news@siliconcarib.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it this week. Happy to be back. And of course, we're going to keep our cadence. Every Friday, we're going to drop a new podcast. Today just happens to be Saturday because we've been summering. But we made sure that this week was not going to pass without us dropping a new podcast for y'all. So thank you for sticking with us. We're taking it one step at a time, and thank you for going the journey with us. So that's really it. That's all for this episode of This Week in Caribbean Tech from Silicon Carib. If you found something of value, please comment below. Click that button, that like button, right? Make sure that you subscribe. So when you get it, whether on in audio form, because This Week in Caribbean Tech is on 8 audio podcast platforms. And of course, you can watch us on Silicon Carib TV channel on YouTube. So, Daniel, enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
Same to you, ma'am.
So, cheers, water bottle to water bottle. Stay hydrated, and we see you back here next week, Friday, for another episode. My name is Ingrid Riley.
And I'm Daniel Smith.
I'm gonna have to work on him on that. I'm working on him, people. I'm working on him. But next time I'm gonna send some rum to him, yeah?
Whatever, man.
Next week, y'all. See ya.
All right, bye.